Welcome to the PricePlow Podcast. My name is Mike. I'm here with Ben, and we are more than honored to be joined by Doug Miller of Core Nutritionals, the whole Core family. I'm not sure exactly which one we want to talk about first here, but Doug, this is our first time as Ben opens up a Boom energy drink. So Merica Energy, of course, as well. So Doug, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
That's a funny comment.
Thanks for coming.
There's so many different directions we could go.
Yeah, I think everyone who listens to this podcast will know who Doug is, but maybe like a really brief introduction would be in order. So your first time on our show, and we do have some ingredient geeks who follow us who might not know you, but I'm pretty sure everyone does. So how about a quick introduction, and then we wanted to get right into the crux of this call, which would be talking about the supply chain and some of the price increases we've seen lately. So can you kick it off for us?
Yeah, sure. So I've been in the supplement industry for about 16 or 17 years now. So I started Core Nutritionals back in late 2004, early 2005. I was a aspiring natural bodybuilder who didn't really like the options on the market. You know, at that time, everything was a prop blend. Everything was using fillers, all that stuff. And so I just wasn't happy with what was out there. So at the time I was doing economic litigation consulting was my day job. It was kind of some nerdy stuff. And, I was in meetings all the time. So I needed a meal replacement. I didn't want to take the Myoplex or the Metrex or any of that stuff with the maltose. So we created MRP, Core MRP, which is our kind of slow digesting blend of carbohydrates and proteins. And that was the first product. At the end of the day, it's just creating products around what I wanted to use with some principles of transparency, efficacy, no prop blends, things that other people at the time were not doing. So I started Core Nutritionals with a $20,000 investment of my own money, and kind of grew organically as I became more successful in natural bodybuilding, eventually winning 2 world championships in 2009 and 2014. And that's when the brand really kind of took off, because right around that time in 2013, I decided to get rid of the golden handcuffs of the corporate world and kind of go all in on the brand. At that period of time, I also had one retail store called Arlington Nutrition Corner. And again, I created the store because at the time, in my neighborhood, all there were the GNCs and the vitamin shops, and there was no good mom and pop providing superior service and more brands and a full-on experience. So we started Arlington Nutrition Corner back in 2010. And as soon as I left my day job in 2013, we quickly started opening up more stores. So kind of fast forward to 2018, we created another brand, which was Merica Labz, which was our patriotic, tongue-in-cheek, brand. The idea behind that was more of a marketing and a kind of a eye-catching brand compared to Core, but sticking to the same core principles of like the highest quality products, over-the-top dosing based on real science. But maybe somebody will buy it for the first time just because they, the patriotic label resonates with them, but they'll keep coming back to buy it because of the quality of the product, like the other Core products. So that brand kind of went viral that was actually 2017. And then in 2018, we launched Merica Energy, which is basically the spinoff of Merica Labz. That's our energy drink company, which was really gaining really good traction until COVID came, and our supply chain and our distribution chain got crushed. That was the one brand that really took a hit during COVID. So we took this past year as the opportunity to basically rebrand, and that's what we rebranded, what you see Ben drinking. And then in 2019, I started a partnership with Julian Smith, and that's Arms Race Nutrition. So Arms Race Nutrition is, again, a brand that all our brands stick to the same core principles of the quality and the science and the formulation behind the products. But this was an influencer-based brand. So we wanted to create an influencer-based brand that stood on its own. So let's say Julian goes out and gets hit by a bus tomorrow, God forbid. We want the brand and the quality of the products to still move the product and get people excited, not just the influencer, right? Other influencer brands out there, they have really strong influencers that do have a lot of influence on people, and they move a ton of product, but there's really not much substance to those products. And so we wanted to do it what we feel is the right way, right? So that's Arms Race. So it's those 4 brands, and then the nutrition corners are really growing for us. We have 11 going on 12 stores, and we might have as many as 13 or 14 in the next 6 months. And so we have a great leadership team in place for the nutrition corners. We have 11 in Virginia. The 12th will be our first one in North Carolina, where we just moved our headquarters. So in a nutshell, that's what I got going on.
What's really impressive me, I was trying to keep up with the timeline for a little bit, is that even with that corporate job, you were opening brick and mortar stores. I mean, that just logistically to me, that seems like the toughest part of while working the corporate job.
Yeah, so we don't have much. When you get some young employees that will work 40 hours a week, 45 hours a week, and they complain and they're like, man, 50 hours a week. And, they want to be promoted to CEO in year 2. We don't have any tolerance for that. It's not part of our core values. And part of that stems from my experience. I work 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week doing consulting. And on the side, I was trying to build these brands. Granted, I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but I was trying, I was trying to figure it all out myself. And so I was working an additional, 20, 30, 40 hours a week, trying to build the brands and run nutrition corners. I drove my wife completely insane because at the same time I was trying to compete on top of all of it.
Did you have kids at that point too?
It was nuts. So we don't have much tolerance for people that complain or don't have a high threshold for pain. So we either know you're going to fit in when you come here right off the bat, or we know you're going to fail. So you're either going to succeed amazingly, or you're going to fail. There really is no in between.
That's wild. So, and what's really, I think one of the big things that kind of sticks out to me is you mentioned having a background in economics, some sort of corporate, you went to college and actually prepared. You're not just a meathead that decided to open a brand after your name. So you clearly were prepared for some of the hurdles and some of the more nuanced parts of running businesses, which is what's helped you kind of get to this point that you're at. It almost seems like there's a synergy between a lot of the businesses, especially the fact that you own a chain of stores. I'm sure that helps out a lot. Do you feel like there's been an evolution? Because it seems like you had Core, which has the least amount of marketing, and then at the end you have an influencer brand, which seems to be almost the antithesis of what Core is.
Yeah. So I went to school. I actually studied biochemistry and molecular biology, and I had a double major in economics. So I actually knew way more about biochemistry than economics when I left, but then I started doing economic consulting, and I didn't really use the biochemistry except for on my own, right? I was still kind of researching bodybuilding and supplements and all that stuff. So yeah, I didn't really have a mentor starting off, right? I didn't know anything about business. I didn't know anything about the supplement industry. I didn't know how the supply chain works. I didn't know all that. And at the end of the day, it was literally just me trying things. And now it's us, but in the beginning it was me, right? Me trying things and failing, and then trying them again and doing them better and learning from that and continuing to just reinvest in those brands. And then, yeah, there is an evolution, right? Because the market doesn't stay the same. People want to see different things. And so we're learning as we're going. And so that's why we do have 3 different brands. They are all marketed differently. A lot of times we have customers that overlap, but there are different, it's a huge market and it's growing. So why couldn't we have multiple brands, And so, yeah, it's been a learning experience, right? I feel like we're finally getting it, but at the same time, we really have no idea still the end game. I don't, claim to be some genius, right? I work hard. I have great people that, follow one of our core values, which is just, we know how to figure things out, right? And that's the most valuable thing. And we're super passionate about what we do, and we love what we do. So that's how we've become successful. But yeah, it's an evolution. It really is. It's and then it's just more opportunity for us to learn, which keeps us hungry and keeps it fun. So yeah, it's definitely every year something different, pops up, and we learn from it and we apply it and we get better.
So
I was going to ask, you're definitely killing it, but is there anything you do differently, or any mistakes that are fun to highlight without hurting the ego too much?
Some of them I don't even know if I want to talk about on the podcast.
Right.
Um, yeah, I mean, like, you know, there's winners and losers, and luckily we've had more winners than losers, right?
Right.
But specifically, no, I mean, I wouldn't be where I am today without going through that process. And I think we are in a better position to be successful at whatever we decide to do now because I went through this, you know, all of that the past 10 years or 15 years, right? So if you kind of just, if you just kind of start something and it just goes on a rocket ship, like you kind of miss out. Ours was a slow growth with some spikes and then a slow growth with some spikes. And for me, it was very similar to bodybuilding, right? It's like, I didn't want to just load up on a ton of gear and blow up and then lose it and then blow up and lose it, right? Like I'm in it for the long game, the long steady growth through my career. And we've kind of applied that to the businesses, and I really wouldn't change it. You know, like we've made some mistakes, but there's been nothing catastrophic, and we're better for it. So there's nothing really I wouldn't change.
So you've had all this evolution, all this growth, and I'll bring out a bit of an icebreaker here. You're going to be the first brand that we're going to publicly come out here and note. You mentioned supply chain issues. You mentioned Merica Energy suffering last year, but you've grown from that. You're going to be the first brand that comes out and publicly says you're raising the prices of your proteins. And I also understand it's probably not the only ingredient that's going to be a problem in the next year. Can you tell us how you came to this realization and really how this is happening?
Well, there really wasn't another choice. And, you know, sticking with what we do as a brand and something that I'm proud of is it's transparency, right? So we've been telling people, we told people a month ahead of time. We knew this was coming. So we drew the line in the sand on September 1st, right? But we gave all our good retail partners and all our direct to consumer people a heads up. Listen, this is coming. We're going to try to mitigate it as much as we can. We don't have an option. We are a for-profit business. We have a ton of overhead. Like, we can't sell protein at a loss. That's not what we do. It's just not. I know some people might choose to do that, but that's not how I run a business. And so we've eaten as much as we can, and we are going to increase the prices September 1. So if you want to stock up, you're in a position to stock up. We let people do that. And I think that was the best way to do it. Some people have already raised their prices. We might be the first ones to publicly say it, but prices have already crept up because we're on the retail side. So us having a chain of retail stores, we see. So like I talked to Trey, who's our assistant general manager, who does a lot of the buying, and Naomi, and I'm like, okay, so where are we seeing the price increase? Oh, like we're already seeing $5, $7 here, $3 here. There wasn't some big announcement. It just so happens that, you know, over 11 stores, if you see your margin go down by 0.5 percentage point over a lot of transactions, that's a significant, like that makes me aware that, okay, where are we losing our margin? Are we just changing the basket of goods we're selling, or is it really like people are raising their prices to us? And people are raising their prices. So it's going to happen sooner or later. Some people, like if you're a direct to consumer brand only, which we are not, maybe they could eat more of it, but at the end of the day, you know, we do a lot of direct to consumer business on the core side and the arms race side, but we're still way more wholesale. So like, you know, we're 2/3 or more wholesale, right? So we're not selling at that full price. So we don't have as much margin on the wholesale side. So when we raise prices, we have to keep in mind our good partners and make sure that we can get them at a price point to them where they're still motivated to sell it. So we looked at these numbers and crunched these numbers a lot of ways, but I mean, we literally were seeing 65 to 70% increases in landed cost to us. So just think about that. So if something cost us $10, right, we are now getting it at $17. Like, that's insane. Like, how do you not raise your prices, right? Like, that's a great way to go out of business, right? Like, we want to continue to grow. And I will say that, you know, we've been monitoring our, you know, direct to consumer and our wholesale business for the last 15 days, and people are still buying protein, right? They're still buying protein without a coupon code. They're still going to our retailers because our retailers continue to buy protein from us. So it's just the way the inflation is going. I think people realize they still need their gains, they still need their protein. And, now we've done some things. We've also doubled down. We're doing more research in vegan and trying to kind of build out our vegan line, which has an amazing tasting line of vegan. So we're trying to grow that flavor, those flavor profiles in that line, so that people have an alternative choice, because the price increases aren't hitting vegan as much, maybe a little bit through plastics and such, but not near as much as a whey product. So we just were really transparent about it. Right. And I think people understand, and some people we might price out of some people, but our loyal consumer knows how much effort and we put into our products, the quality of our products, the taste of our products, and they're still going to want it. And we're committed to reducing the price. This isn't something we want to do, right? Like, we want to make products more affordable for people. So we want to, as soon as we see some, cost savings, we're going to pass it on. So this is not something that's going to last forever. I hope, right? But we just don't know. We just don't know. And they're saying it could still continue to increase through Q1, right? Like, maybe a little bit relief in Q1. Well, that won't kind of really circulate into the market until late next year. So we couldn't wait around, right? Like, we couldn't just hope for the best and say, okay, price is going to be 70% higher for the next 3 months, and let's hope it goes down then. That would be 3 months where we literally lost money, right? Like, or we're losing out on profit. So it was just the right business decision, I think. I guess we'll find out in a year from now. But we're all pretty confident, and I think having great relationships with our retailers and even our regular clients, consumers, no one has really kind of lost their mind over it.
I think this has been, in the last year, a really big gut check, but also a big point where a lot of brands have been able to speak more directly with their consumers and really relate to them. Consumers have seen toilet paper shortages. They've seen shortages in other industries. We all can relate, and we understand it's tangible. We see it. So when someone like you, Doug, who is a visible consumer-facing entity, like when you speak and you say, hey, we are having this issue and we're asking you to understand this, it's way more relatable. It's not out of the blue. Like, I think a lot of Americans are seeing this coming.
Yeah. I mean, and just to be clear, it's like, and we are really trying to eat margin here, right? So if we get a 70% increase in the price, right, we're not trying to stay margin percentage neutral here, right? Like, we'd have to raise the price of our product 70%, right? We're not even doing that. We're not even trying to stay dollar neutral, meaning, like, if we used to make $5 on an item, we're not even trying to make $5 this time. We're trying to get back to close to that so we can stay in business, but we're eating a lot of it. So we're doing the best we can. So we're trying to find that happy middle ground where we can continue to grow. Because over the past year, we joke internally. I joke with Pat, or Pat jokes with me, I guess. It's like, bro, we're becoming a protein brand. He's like, we move so much protein. I'm like, well, that's great. It's great until protein prices go up 70%. But yeah, so I mean, it was just a decision we had to make, and I think our consumer does understand.
Yeah, they do. I mean, we're seeing, anyone who goes to the grocery store sees prices of meat, poultry, beef, all that's going up. Gasoline is going to continue to go up. So it's obvious that something's happening here. Going back, come on, folks, coupon code PricePlow. Don't forget to use your coupon. But also, so it seems like this is more dairy based though, or more whey based. Do you have any, like, but if it's not vegan based, what do you think is the story behind some of that? It's like, I'm assuming the cows are still making milk. So, I mean, it's obviously.
I mean, for real, but honestly, China has a lot to do with it, right? Like, the demand, even the demand domestically for milk products, everyone's at home drinking freaking milk and eating cheese, right?
Is it that
like,
simple? Yeah.
It's really a very strong demand thing. The increases, the exports to China, because they use whey products in, like, swine feed and all sorts of other things, not just like human consumables. Like, the amount of exports, I forget the exact percentage, but how much it's grown over the last 12 months is insane, right? So there's those shortages, the increase in demand. It's a combination of all of those things. where the whey products are, definitely getting hit the most, the dairy. And again, that's why we're looking at other types of protein. I just never was a fan of like beef, but even beef protein is going to be, going up some. So, yeah, it's a crazy time in the dairy industry.
Have you considered, because you use this in your post, and it's something that we kind of joke around with Nutrition 21 about, have you considered using Velostal a little bit more strategically with the data that it can give you a better response with less protein?
I think people are scared. I love Velostal.
Yes.
I wouldn't put it in post if I didn't like it. But I think your average consumer might be skeptical on that, especially our consumer who is educated, right? Like we feel like we do have to educate, like our consumer is a little more educated. So if we told them about Velostal and showed them the studies like we do, they would get it. But I think people are so ingrained of drinking, a 25-gram protein scoop, right? Like they're so ingrained in doing that if you put 15 grams of protein in a serving of protein, like a whey, it would be a turnoff to a lot of people.
I understand that.
Definitely an option, and I think it would be, a decent option. I just feel like we would get pushback on that because then people would think we're lessening our products, and that goes against what we do.
Right.
Well, zooming out from Ben's question, then, have you considered changing any formulations based upon supply chain or prices, or do you keep where you're at? And then
that's a good question. I'm trying to think if the answer, because off the top of my head, the answer is no. We have, and this is something that I should probably share as well, is that we have eaten significant price increases in like all our pre-workouts. So like we're talking
caffeine,
10 to 20% pricing, 10 to 15% price increases, which is significant in a pre-workout because of citrulline, because of creatine. And we use creatine like mono in so many of our pre-workouts. Like citrulline and creatine, those two alone have caused really big price increases, and we haven't changed our prices, right? We don't bring a $44.99 pre-workout to $49.99. We just eat it. Right? We don't bring a $39.99 pre to a $44.99. We've just eaten it. So I think at the end of the day, the answer is no, but it does make new formulation makes you think a little bit. You're kind of thinking a little bit more because that initial quote that you get is significantly higher than what you would expect. So I think in the new formulation realm, yeah, we kind of keep it in mind a little bit. But if it's going to affect the efficacy of the product in any way, it's just not something we do. Then we just don't bring out the product. Maybe now is not the right time to bring out that product. And I'd rather continue to grow the SKUs that we do have out until it is a viable product. But I don't want to bring out something that's pixie dusted or, skimps on something that I think is important. Yeah, we might look
looking at Boom here. The two ingredients you called out, L-citrulline and creatine, are literally 11 of the 20.4 grams of material. So
yep.
It looks like you're getting unlucky.
It's not a cheap pre-workout. And in fact, that MAP price, a minimum advertised price of $39.99 on that formula is aggressive. That's aggressive. And we did that on purpose. But yeah, that's not a cheap product.
Yeah, I know we're not here to like do a pre-workout review, but folks, I've been like slow sipping on this stuff almost on a daily basis. You get your creatine, but then the ashwagandha is making it feel good. You have a timed release or a delayed release caffeine kick in there. And I can't say enough good things about Boom, especially this Daytona Beach flavor. So yeah, keep it the way it is if you can.
Yeah, I mean, that's so I have access to a ton of pre-workouts. We have a ton of pre-workouts under the brand. Right. And that for the last probably 2 or 3 weeks, that's been my go-to. That's the one that I keep kind of leaning towards right now. I go through phases of where it'll be Fury or Harness or, something else, Zone or something like that. But right now I'm on the Boom kick.
Mm-hmm. Look, are you a creatine mono guy? Because this has been a discussion I've been having too. I'm strictly mono, but with the increases in pricing and the lower availability, I've been theorizing that hydrochloride might be a little bit more the way to go. I'm not a fan of hydrochloride. I'm not against it, but I'm curious about you because I see a lot of mono with you.
I've always preached mono. Preached mono. I will say that we use a different form of creatine in our upcoming released Australian version of Fury, which we're launching in October.
Mhm.
So that one is a different formula, a little lower stim. There's some added performance. And then we swapped out the Creatine Mono um, for Creatine Magna Power. And one of the main reasons is we work very closely with Massive Joe's, who's our exclusive distributor down there. And he really liked it. And at the end of the day, it does make the mouth feel better, because creatine in a pre-workout, 5 grams is a lot. It can be a little bit gritty. And this pre-workout has a even better mouthfeel than Fury, which has like 25 grams of active. So we do use a different version, but for the most part, if you had to ask me, I'm a Creatine Mono. It's like the most studied. It's one of the, it's been around for so long. It works. I used to be able to say it's inexpensive, which it's not anymore because it's 3x. But yeah, I'm a big Creatine Mono person.
Cool. Yeah, it seems like a lot of these ingredients, ironically, like citrulline, creatine, caffeine, like classic stuff, might have to start looking at other options possibly. Whereas in the past, I think I'm a lot like you, where it's just like, look, these are just simple and they work, and there's no reason to look for more complicated things. There might be some reason to soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be difficult, because those are really the backbone of the pre-workout category, and because they're simple and they work. Right? Yeah. I think some people. Formulation is, it's a science, but it's a lot of art too, and that's what people don't recognize. Every bro, every bodybuilder thinks they can formulate. I'm gonna make this sick pre-workout with 40 grams of actives, bro. It's gonna be amazing. It's gonna cost $99. But like, there's way more. There's a lot of art to it, and so I just think you have to be very selective in your ingredients, and you gotta really try your product, like actually taste it and actually use it. And there's still a lot of good options out there you can make an affordable pre-workout for.
I think it's kind of funny, circling back, you kind of mentioned before that you guys have been recently like figuring things out, but you're talking about like formulating as an art form. In 2019, 2020, you guys came out with a lot of new SKUs. They're talking like Blaze, Sierra, like all these big things, and people praise you guys a lot for it. But I kind of kept being like, when I met Patrick, I think I met Patrick in 2017 or something. Like, we were up at Sups doing a tour. I saw your guys' brand for the first time. The formulas like haven't gotten better. Like they were always great. They were in a different bottle, but you guys always pushed the limits. You always had a lot of solid stuff.
And that goes back to the core value of why I started the brand in the first. So when I say figuring it out, and I use that term kind of flippantly, I'm not like, we're still figuring it out. That's what Carl, our general manager, says. We're still figuring it out. Always still figuring it out. But at the end of the day, I mean, our formula, that is what has really marked Core, has been innovative and very high quality formulation. I would say if there's like one thing that Core does extremely well from day one, it would be formulation, right? And that's something that we've always done well. I think when we talk about figuring it out, running these organizations, in an 8-figure company there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of team involved. There's a lot of HR involved. There's a lot of IT involved. There's a lot of all of this stuff, right? And we joke like, Carl's the IT guy in the HR department, and I'm the, everyone does everything, right? But we're figuring it out, and that's just a growth. It's just a growth thing. But the formulas have always been there, but I think it's more on the marketing side and the branding side is where we've started to learn a lot.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you guys that. Yeah. Sorry, Mike.
No, I was going to ask. So a lot of people listening might be like, I want to work for that guy. It sounds like my kind of company. Are you, we never really said the date, is September 14th of 2021, but are you hiring / in general, like how does one begin working with a Doug Miller brand?
So we have a non-traditional hiring.
I figured.
So at the end of the day, this is our take on things. Now, you have to have some set of skills. So like if we are looking for somebody who's going to do web design or graphic design, right? Like clearly you need somebody trained in web design or graphic design or coding or something like that, right? But for the most part, so once you kind of, you establish that part, we really hire more people than positions, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Because like, as I was saying, how we joke that, oh, he's the HR department and the IT department or whatever. We look at capable people. We look for capable people who are very passionate. And first and foremost, they know how to figure it out, right? Like, I didn't know how to do this when I started. I figured it out. Patrick didn't know how to do this when he started. I literally said, guess what? You just became national sales director for Core and Merica Labz. Have fun with it. And he figured it out, right? So the way we hire is we find the right people that fit our core values, and we get them on the bus, as we say. We get them on the bus, and then together as a team, we determine where we go on that bus, right? So that sounds good, but really, like, that's what we do. I got a guy we're hiring, he's coming in here, and I said, listen, I don't know exactly what you're going to do, but right now we're opening a new gym. I know you're passionate about the brands. I know you have skills. I know you can figure things out. Why don't you come in here and help me open the gym, and we'll give you 1,000 things to do, and we'll find your position for you when you get here, right? And he said, you know what? Great, I'm picking it up, and I'm going to move from Chicago in October, and I'm your guy, right? And we've done that with so many people. Like, that's just how we hire. So unless it's a very specific technical skill, obviously, that's generally how we hire. And I know that sounds weird. That's kind of like weird, but like, I really don't look at education. I look at the ability to figure it out. Show me how you have figured it out, right? And that's how you'll get hired.
I think it makes absolute sense in an industry where there's no playbook for this. And for the record, I've never met anyone that figures things out more than Patrick. Like, I've visually watched him figure things out before. Like, your team they're like hard-headed, stubborn workers, and it's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, like, our inside sales manager, because our new guy who's starting in the gym, he's not Dave, Dave, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, man, we got to get like some type of computer system, POS system to run a gym management. Like, again, we're just figuring it out. We're opening a gym. And so he's on it. So he's got this in. Now he's basically fully figured out how to manage the entire software and all that stuff. But he has nothing to do with the gym world, right? Like, he's our inside sales manager and customer service, but he just stepped up and he's like, hey man, I'm going to figure it out. So like, that's what my core team, no pun intended, that's what they're good at doing.
Yeah, and speaking of like figuring it out, you guys entered into GNC. You're with an exclusive partnership. I don't think you or Julian has ever worked with GNC before.
Nope.
You hire one.
It out.
You hire one outside sales rep. You buy him a van with Julian on it, and you have one. Like, how many GNC brands have one outside sales rep that covers the whole country? It's incredible.
So David is a great story. So David came on. He was actually a GNC employee. And we were supposed to go do an event at his store for the 2020, like, Arnold Classic. Julian was coming and all that, and it was canceled, right? But I still showed up, and I went in there and I met him face to face. And as I walked out of there, I said to Patrick, we're going to hire this guy. I don't know where. I actually wanted him. I said, hey, you want to come work for the Nutrition Corners? Is what I said, honestly. GNC might not like that, but and he kind of laughed it off. Well, he pitched his position to me a year later. And he said, Doug, he's like, I think I can help you. Here's what I want to do. And so I was like, okay, I listened to him. And I was like, okay, now show me the numbers. And so literally he came back a day later and he goes, okay, this is how much the car is going to cost. This is what I want for a salary. This is what I want. This is how much I need for travel. This is how much I need for gas. This is how much I need for car stock and all this. And I'm going to preach arms race from the top of my van all over the country, and we're going to grow this thing. And I looked at the numbers and they seemed legit. And I was like, talk to Julian, and we're like, all right, let's go. Let's do it. Right. And David has been a massive asset to the brand, right? Because, Julian's got a huge following, but 1 million people in a country of 330 million is nothing, right? So there's a lot of people that walk in who don't even know Julian that might need to be educated on our product. So Dave has started leading up that, heading up that education process. And I'll tell you what, I'll take David over 5 reps from any other company. Like that's the value that he adds. And you know what? He didn't know what he was doing. He's figuring it out. I think that should be the title of this podcast. Just
figuring it out with Core Nutritionals, or figuring out with Doug Miller. I love it. That is exciting. So
I think the other question we wanted to talk about was the fact that you are going back into brick and mortar, whereas a lot of companies are retracting
or distribution,
direct consumer only. You are attacking a lot of that stuff. And are you filling up some gaps that people are leaving, or what happened?
Yeah, so I think you meant distribution, not so we're in brick and mortar. So
right. Yes.
So let's flash back about 4 years. Core was actually distributed through Muscle Foods. And at the time, we didn't really know how to manage that relationship. It's always a little bit of a weird relationship when your distributor might feel that you're trying to steal customers, which isn't what we do. But like, reps get territorial. Like, hey, man, I see that I sell energy drinks to that company or to that retail store. And I also see they have Core product, but they don't get the Core product from us. I was like, okay, well, that's been our account for 10 years. So there was some of that, which, and also we were finding that since Core is an education brand, meaning a lot of times it's not like a marketing first brand, it's more of an education brand. We were doing all the work to educate anyways, yet we were handing over a bunch of margin to a middleman. So in it was like late 2017, we decided to pull from distribution. We decided to pull from Muscle Foods. And it was a great decision. I mean, and it was we still have a great relationship with Muscle Food. We still work with them on the Merica side. I think there was a mutual understanding that it was the best thing to do. So, flash forward to 2020, we did the rebrand. I mean, the brand grew. I mean, we had a record year in 2020 when, a lot of things slowed down, but we kept going and pushing. And then coming into 2021, we had so much good momentum and we continued to grow that it was really, after Europa went through the financial difficulties that they did, right? They basically had a restructuring and had to start over. They got some investment and they had to start over. They wanted to trim down the brands that they carry and get some fresh blood in there. So we were approached by Europa to be distributed through them. And, a lot of people will say like, oh man, why would you do that? Occasionally sometimes a retailer would be like, man, now they're going to get Core everywhere and I'm not going to be able to sell it, which the podcast I just did, our Boss Status podcast, the title was Small Business, not Small Mindedness. And I think a lot of retailers get stuck in the idea that, certain decisions made, or like everybody's out to get there. Every decision is going to ruin their business. But at the end of the day, like, don't you think that we had all you guys in mind, which I'm speaking to retailers here, like who are 2/3 of our sales. Like, don't you think we had you in mind when we made this strategic decision? And what we did is, because we learned from our previous distribution relationship, we put processes in place to make sure that anything that a small mom and pop retailer could say that this is a bad decision, we would have something to answer them to. And so what do I mean by that? I mean by that is, one, they're not allowed to sell to any third-party platform, Amazon, Walmart, eBay. So Europa has controls in their system where if any one of their people they sell to has that, they get flagged. Like, you can't even create an invoice with a Core product on it that go to them. So they're immediately, that's not going to happen. We have full control over all the Amazon through one specific route. So your pricing will be controlled on these third-party platforms, which sometimes can get out of hand and hurt retailers. Okay, so we got that covered. The other thing is like, we try to preach the idea of we don't give exclusives, but sometimes we have really good retail partners where they might have another retail partner right down the street for them, that the only reason they want to carry a brand is to literally destroy the brand, like undercut them and steal customers, which at the end of the day is going to hurt us as well as that retail. So if we have talking to our retailers, if there's a specific customer out there where we don't want to sell it, again, we flag them in the system through a lot of communication with Europa, and then they are like blacklisted. Like, you can't even create an invoice, you can't even force an invoice to them, right? So all the MAP policies are communicated. And then the other thing, which was big for us in a business decision, is, listen, we've spent 15 years building up our industry goodwill and our retailers, right? we're not going to go into distribution and turn over accounts to you unless it makes sense for us. So don't expect us to go into Europa and say, okay, here's 200 accounts that you guys should start servicing now, and then we lose all that margin and profit, right? It was very clear. We had that discussion up front, and the discussion was, they're not going to do that. They're not going to expect us to turn over accounts unless it makes sense. Like you have a little mom and pop that just needs $200 worth of stuff. Like that's not even really worth our time to fulfill. So it might make sense for Europa to do it when they ship them energy drinks and other stuff too, right? So like in that case, they could help us. But at the same time, we're committed to Europa that if you bring your relationships and open new doors for us, we're not going to go in there and steal those doors from you, right? Like that's just reciprocity. Like that's the way that it should work in a good partnership with open communication. And that was very clearly communicated, you know, openly and upfront. And the idea, our idea, and directly from Europa's mouth is their goal with Core is to open new doors. Put us into places where we're not already or don't already have those relationships. Put us into Dick's Sporting Goods, right? Put us into Academy Sports. And at the end of the day, that should actually help the mom and pop because pricing will be protected and there'll be more brand awareness around Core. So now when the person that comes into Core, into your retail store, who might not have known Core before, they'll now know Core and there'll be a discussion to be had, right? And it's not like they can go to, I'm just making up these places, but Academy Sports, they can't go to Academy Sports and buy it for cheaper than what you should be selling at because we protect our retailers. So we've really, the other thing is, I should add, any retailer that is a brick and mortar that also has an online site themselves gets flagged, and we get notified that this brick and mortar with a retail store, we have to basically give them a thumbs up, okay, right? Because then that will be put it on our list. We want to have control over where the brand is going. So we know that that website will now have it, and that's a place that we can police to make sure that, you know, MAP pricing is being made or met. So we've put a lot of safeguards in place and have thought a lot about this decision, where really for us, it was a total upside decision, right? What is the worst that can happen? We don't move very well through Europa. Okay. Like we still have all these great relationships with retailers. We still have a lot of direct consumer. Why not continue to grow the brand through another avenue? I know that was a mouthful, but that's a lot that we had to think about.
No, that was actually really great. I have to say, like when brands go into Europa, I quite often am receiving like a lot of the ranting from brands when they or stores when they see something going there. So you've really negated every single negative comment that I've ever heard. The only because these stores do not now have to purchase through Europa instead of you, so their prices aren't increasing. They don't have to worry about MAP. MAP is a huge problem in the industry right now. We actually help brands with MAP because of our online technology, and that's negated for you. It's all positive. It's going to grow brand awareness. They're going to have more customers coming in that recognize the brand, and overall, it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah. Exactly.
It seems like it's putting you in a great position to build a great relationship with Europa as well. You know, I don't want to condemn anyone, but we've heard, you know, Europa has not done as well the last couple of years. So I'm sure having a great partner like Core can strengthen their ability to build.
I mean, that's what we're hoping, right? Like we want to be a good partner for them. And, you know, we had to make the decision, like, because they're a big partner for us for Merica Energy, right? Like we don't distribute our energy drinks, right? Like we don't want to be in the game of shipping water. So for Merica, they're a very key partner for us in that distribution. So we do have a very great relationship with the guys over there, right? And, you know, I think is only going to help us. And it all comes down to, it's like any relationship, it's communication. As long as James and Patrick and Dave and all those guys can like have open communication with the reps, who they have great people. Like it's great because they're 45 minutes down the road from us now. So that was another decision for us that like, hey, you know, a couple times a month, like Pat's going to be down in there, sitting in their office working, you know? So it just, as long as there's open communication, I think it's going to be a total win for us.
Yeah. Speaking of figuring it out, Pat called us one time. He's like, hey, I'm going to be like a minute late to the meeting because I'm delivering the Merica Energy myself to Europa. Like Being that close has a lot of strategic benefits, I bet.
Yeah. I mean, so the other thing about hiring is we make everyone do 5 jobs until we hire one more person. So that's a general rule. So that might turn a lot of people off, but I'll tell you what, you ask any employee in this building and they have a lot of fun doing what they do. And so
Really?
you're just doing the same thing, sitting at this desk, and you know what you're going to get into every day. That's no fun. But like we had somebody out with COVID who usually drives our box truck. So we had to get those energy drinks to Europa. So, Pat hopped in there.
Do all of your employees also have CDLs?
No one has a CDL. Just for the record, our box truck is 25,999 pounds. It's under the limit. That's what it says on the inside of the door. So we're good. We're good. We checked it.
Well,
awesome. One thing Patrick did say, he mentioned the word like play. You guys play a lot. Like, I'm not sure if you have a foosball table now or something along those lines, but it seems like when there is time.
Hoops, we got ping pong. Sometimes I'm wondering, like, what are they actually doing out there? Like, and I just hear like the thumping on the wall and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, the play aspect that is Carl. So Carl's our general manager of our stores. He always tells people you need to play in life, right? Like, and so it's kind of creepy almost, like when Carl says it, because he's just kind of creepy. But yeah, we like to play. We like to have fun.
Well, that's awesome. We've packed a lot into an hour here, and I don't want to make us go on for too much longer, but is outside of all of these things we've dropped and talked about, is there anything you're excited for next 3, 6, 9 months that, we could touch on the next 10 minutes?
Yeah, so we are just now getting settled into this new building. So we have about 32,000 square feet. You guys should definitely, once we get finally settled in, you guys should come visit. One of our biggest manufacturers is taking the building next door. So by Q1, they'll be up and running next door in about 65,000 square feet. And so the synergies to have literally basically in-house manufacturing is kind of what it's going to be like. I think that opens up way more opportunities. And I don't want to give anything away. And maybe this is your little tidbit, but there could be other brands in the future
Cool.
because of the ability to have all the R&D and everything right at our disposal. It does open up that opportunity. I mean, none of these brands are going to slow down. So we're going to continue to pump stuff out. For us, we like to build community locally and around the world, whoever uses our products. But here we're finally opening up our gym. That has just been a little passion project that we've wanted to do for a long time. So we have a lot of little fun things in the works. And moving to North Carolina, not once have I regretted yet moving, from Northern Virginia. So we're just excited about kind of getting settled in down here.
So it's not quite vertical integration, but it's like a very high incline diagonal integration. It brings a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like we'll be able to, we can film content of every product run if we wanted, right? Because it's literally, looking out the window, I see it right there, the building's right there. So, and that was the big business decision to kind of put us over the edge to make a decision on where we wanted to move to.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Doug, I think we got a ton out of this. I cannot wait to share this with everyone. I want to say thank you. This has been really cool. Obviously, everyone can find Core Arms Race Nutrition Merica on Instagram, but what is your Instagram if they want to find you personally?
Doug Miller Pro is my Instagram.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much. We should do this again soon. And absolutely, when you are open down there, I know we talked about this previously, but we haven't had a call in a little bit. We want to get down there, definitely get to the opening and crush it at the Coliseum.
Yeah, buddy. Appreciate you guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
You too.